So I have a clip here from CNN, and I'm kind of surprised that this man was even able to talk and they didn't shut him down immediately. So it makes a very interesting point. So let's check out this clip and then I'll discuss it a little bit.
In all these speeches, as good as they were, is that she's in the White House right now. Democrats have controlled the White House for 12 of the last 16 years. And for all of the talk about division and the problems in the country and people are hurting, Democrats have mostly controlled this country. Trump had it for 4. The Obamas and Biden had it for the rest of the time. And somehow, it's still all Trump's fault, and somehow she hasn't been at the center of it. So to me, that's still the glaring hole in this campaign that hasn't yet been solved at the convention. How do you explain all of the problems that will be solved by the person who is currently in there for the last 3.5 years, who is supposed to already be working on solving it?
So he makes a good point. The Democrats have been in charge of the White House for 12 of the last 16 years. But somehow it's still all Trump's fault. No matter if it came before Trump or after Trump, it's still Trump's fault. No matter how far away from his presidency you go on the timeline, it's always been Trump's fault. This is just, it's a good point. I even haven't thought about this before. When you look at it chronologically, like Trump has not been around very long. Like culturally, he's been relevant for the last 8 years, basically. Maybe even a little bit more than that. But from a purely like governmental standpoint, he had a minor amount of control. Like 4 years is not a very long time. Yet they still attribute all the problems in the country to him, even the stuff that started before him. So the stuff like the racial division, the political division that they so desperately want to say they're going to fix, like, oh, they're going to bring unity. Remember when Biden, that was like his big thing was, oh, I'm going to unify the country. And now it's more politically divisive than ever, to the point where both sides of the aisle, even Biden admitting this and Trump admitting this, that they neither of them believe, and none of their supporters believe, that whoever wins in November, that they're actually won fairly. Both Democrats and Republicans inherently believe that the other side is going to cheat. And no matter who wins, the side who lost is going to say that the other side cheated. No, despite any evidence, even with evidence. And it doesn't matter who's right and who's wrong, who cheated, who didn't, because everybody's going to believe it one way or another. That's a huge problem when you have zero trust in your elections, because you think that if your person didn't win, they were cheated out of it. And there's no way to dispel those rumors. You can't prove a negative. You can't say, oh, well, they didn't cheat, by just saying that they didn't, because people just say the same thing that they've always done with the government, which is if the government's saying something about like a governmental investigation or something the government did, can you really trust them? No. The answer is no. There's no way to know that the person in power who gains from their lies is actually going to, there's no way to prove that they're going to lie or that they won't lie, right? Like they have the power, they gain from it. And so of course they're going to do whatever it takes to maintain it. And both sides believe that. Regardless of which side you support, you have to admit to yourself that if the other side wins, you're probably going to think something suspicious happened, because that's how politically divisive the country is. But so that despite allegedly wanting this unity and running on this, even though in the same breath they condemn Trump and all his supporters and say they're in a cult or they're insane or whatever, they still say that like somehow all of the political divisiveness is Trump's fault. But, it takes two to tango. And both sides, not just the Democrats, the Republicans too, both don't want unity. They clearly don't. They bash the other side constantly, and with good reason, because we can't get along. I don't think there can be unity. A lot of these issues are so like diametrically opposed, and there's no room to meet in the middle. Like this are not number things anymore. Like this is not about like taxes being at 15% versus 16%. This isn't about, 3% for education versus 5%. This is about like moral stuff, cultural stuff, which you cannot meet in the middle on. Like it's not possible. You can't put culture on like a number line. You can't put, morals on a number line and say like, oh, we're going to meet in the middle of our morality. That's not how people operate. Like how do you meet in the middle between atheism and theism? You can't. That's not possible. And when that's the basis of your society, one way or another, whether we are, humans have inherent value and there's inherent objective morality, versus, humans are completely moldable and can do whatever they want, and there's no moral, it's all relativistic. If those are two diametrically opposed like bases for how you create laws and culture in your country cannot exist and like cohabitate. It's not possible. It's two completely different systems. Because the laws are built on the beliefs of the people, which is built on their philosophy, which is typically built on their religious beliefs. And so when you completely remove that foundation, everything's going to fall apart. And by time you get to the top of that pyramid, when you're talking about like laws, of course they're going to have nothing in common. And if they ever overlap, it's going to be coincidental or just because of the people care about the immediate outcome of something, not the inherent belief as to the reason as why we should have that outcome or the process to go about it. So I don't think we can get along. But so I wouldn't advocate that we can and make that like a big thing like the Democrats are doing. And so the guy brings up a good point. How are people supposed to trust when you talk about unity, but 75% of the time you've been in charge and things have gotten worse and more politically divisive, and you're seriously going to blame it all on Trump? And so does that show your incompetence that Trump's in for 4 years, you're in for 12, and still you're unable to compete with Trump with 3 times the amount of time you've been in office? What are you, inept, incompetent? Like, are you just totally incapable of fighting against Trump because he's that powerful? He's that influential? I don't know the point they're trying to make. And they don't know the point they're trying to make because they've never been asked this question before. So they just sit there with their jaws open and their eyes wide because you're not supposed to ask questions like this, and they have no response. They weren't handed a tailored memo on what to say when asked this question. So they don't know what to say because it's almost inexcusable. How can you be in charge for that long and get nothing done and everything get worse? And I'm not saying Trump's like totally infallible. Like, he's clearly done things that have been problems, and he hasn't lived up to all his promises. He did raise the inflation during COVID. That like Trump is not perfect and by any stretch of the imagination. And some things have gotten better under Trump and some things got worse under Trump. But to then blame Trump for everything and say like nothing got worse under the Democrats, and if it did, it wasn't their fault in any fashion. Either it shows that they were inept and unable to do anything, or that it was, intentional, or they just completely failed. Their political beliefs are just bad, and so that's why things just got worse. But yet they still blame things for Trump, even 4 years later. Basically, they're still saying that the economy sucks because it's Trump's fault. 4 years later, and the border sucks because it's Trump's fault somehow. All of these wars that are happening across the world, they're all really Trump's fault. They just waited to explode until Biden got into the office, and then 2 years after Biden got in office, then everything blew up, or 3 years now for the whole Israel thing. And so I don't know how they can shift the buck. I don't think people believe that. I thought, especially the economic policies, people don't believe that, like, economically, it's just like Trump just got lucky when he was in office, and it was just kind of the calm before the storm, and then everything really collapsed, and it's all Trump's fault. Somehow he can get no credit. He can do no right. The Democrats can do no wrong. And it shows in their beliefs. And I hope people realize this. I hope they think about this, that like they were in charge. They were in charge for 12 of the last 16 years, and nothing's gotten better. What has gotten better? And how is the country ever going to come back together under this? I don't even like, Trump kind of promises unity, but I don't think he does it as wholeheartedly as the Democrats have at the DNC. I've watched most of the speeches at the DNC, and they just all talk about unity, and also talking about locking up Trump supporters, because of course unity comes by force. You're going to have unity if you totally eliminate the other side of the political aisle. If you jail anybody who goes against you, then of course you're going to have unity. That's what China does. That's why China has perfect unity, because they just arrest anybody who goes against the government, who says anything they don't like. And that's what the Democrats want, unity by force. I think people realize this. I hope they do. And I'm not faulting the Democrats, like the real liberals, like the people who are not going out there and saying things they don't believe. The people who, say, I don't want to live in a conservative world. I don't want to live in a country that has primarily conservative values. I don't think we can get along. I don't want to compromise. I can respect that position because I feel the same way. I don't want to compromise. Your version of paradise is my version of hell world, and vice versa. Like, everything you say and believe in, I detest and want the complete opposite of. And I don't think we can ever get along. And so the people who are genuine about that and say, like, no, I have a huge problem with conservative policies, like, that's fine, say that. But then the Democrat officials going out and saying, I hate everything the Republicans stand for. They're all racist, they're all sexist, they're all bigots, they're all in a cult, they're all insane. But we can all get along. It's like, I know, I don't believe that. I don't trust you. I don't trust anything you're saying. And so if Kamala Harris wants to win this election, if she wants to actually unify the country, if she wants to actually do the things she says she's going to do, because she's got about 5 months left. Biden's basically in a retirement home. She's de facto president at this point. They're running her like she's already has been president and is president. And so she's got like 5 months left to do these things. Solve the border crisis. Solve this, or work on the no tax on tips thing, even though you voted against it. Start passing laws that actually do the things you say you're going to do when you're in office. And I get every politician promises things, and they have to run their campaign, but it's like, you're in office now. People care more about proof of work than, what you say you're going to do. Actions speak louder than words. You have the time, you have the power, do it now. And she probably would win if she did. If she just did all these Band-Aid solutions that, both Trump and Kamala are suggesting we do, like the no tax on tip thing, that's not going to help that many people. And structurally, it's not going to fix any of the economic problems with the country. So it's all like the little Band-Aid stuff. If Kamala just implements all the little Band-Aid stuff, she'll probably win. So I don't know why they're not doing that. Probably because they just hate the policies so much. They really don't actually want to put the effort in. They want to run on, you want to run on solutions. That's like oldest trick in politics, is you run on promises. You don't actually deliver the solutions, because if you fix the problem, it's like the repair guy, right? If he actually comes and fixes your sink on the first day, he only gets paid for 1 day, never has to come back again. And so you always like find new problems, little problems, and it takes longer, and it's going to take more money, and they always leave opportunities to come back and back and back. And that's why they never want to fix anything. Republicans and Democrats. That's not just a purely Democrat thing. But right now, the Democrats are in power. They have the opportunity to fix things that they allegedly are saying are problems, and they're going to run on, and yet they won't, because they want to run on it. Even though Kamala's in power, and despite everything they say about unity, despite everything they say about it all being Trump's fault, it's just purely not true. So we'll see if she attempts to get anything done. This is a good question to raise. I haven't thought about it before, but hopefully people talk about it. Like, what are you going to do? You've been in power most of the time. Either Trump is an amazing politician who is able to completely circumvent everything you've ever done for the 8 years preceding him, and also the 4 years after him. He's still somehow affecting the system, and you're completely inept because of it, or, you had the opportunity and you just didn't do it. And, it's one or the other, and they don't want to admit to either, and that's why they just don't talk about it. They don't even keep the discussion going. So kind of tells you everything you need to know, that when asked a real question that they don't have a tailored answer for, they just sit there and gawk and don't know what to do. So we'll see what the future of the DNC has for us, and if they're actually going to deliver on any promises they make in the time they have left. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And I'll catch you in the next one.